spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken is our co-host. How you doing, Ken?
Oh, I'm doing okay, Lynn. It's going, and I am so happy to be here for this episode. I'm looking forward to this show, and just happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been good having you. This is episode 328, Ken.
It's been good. It's been good being had. So
328 though.
What?
Yeah.
This is 328.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that means. Next time it's 329.
Wow. If we make it that far.
Yeah.
Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we host the #1 Disneyland podcast, hosted by two former Disneyland Custodial cast members. Ken and I both worked at Disneyland.
#1.
That's right. We worked there from 1990 to 2007 combined, and we have two books that talk all about it. They talk about our experiences working there and behind the scenes, much, much more. We have two books out, Cleaning the Kingdom. You can get them on Amazon in paperback. You can also get the paperback books on our website, thesweetspot.com, but those are signed. The ones on Amazon are not signed. So go over to the website. Also, audiobook for the first book is out. We are currently working on the second book for audio. That should be out sometime in the summer or so. Also wanted to mention that we have a Patreon, so if you want to help support the show, costs keep going up, and we need to pay for some of these things. It'd be great. You also, by joining our Patreon, you get one bonus episode per month that Ken and I record, and it's just on various topics that have to do with Disneyland, obviously, but that are sometimes more personable or things that we don't talk about on the show or have time to, or we get more in depth about maybe a topic that we talk about in our current events or something like that. And to do that, there's a whole bunch of tiers. For $5 or more, you can get the bonus episode, plus once a month we do a live stream of our current events as we record it for the podcast, and you get a chance to interact with us during that through a chat that we might read your comments and add them into our conversation about the current events and what's going on at Disneyland at that time. So to do that, go over to Patreon and search The Sweet Spot, or go to thesweetspot.com and look for the Patreon link and join today. Ken, who is our guest tonight?
Yes. Well, we have Josh Shipley, who's a former Imagineer, and he's also currently a theatrical actor. Well, he's been a theatrical actor pretty much all his life, and a theatrical director. Mm-hmm. But he did a lot of stuff for Disneyland, so we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to talking with him. I've known him a long time, and glad he's going to be on the show.
Great. I'm looking forward to it, too. But before we do that, we're going to have the current events. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, what do you have for us?
There's nothing, Lynn. Absolutely nothing. No. Hey, there's a headline out of the Orange County Register, Brady McDonald, the story, of course, and it says, "Want to live at Disneyland?" And I'm going to just say, no, you can't. Too bad. But the rest of the headline is, "New Disney community near Palm Springs could be the next best thing." And it says, "Walt Disney Imagineering, the secretive team behind Disney theme parks, will design the new Cotino Master Plan community coming to Rancho Mirage, just outside of Palm Springs." Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Southern California geography, Palm Springs and Disneyland are hours and hours apart. So, anyway, as the story says, if you've ever dreamed of living in Sleeping Beauty Castle or the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, then a new Palm Springs area community designed by Walt Disney Imagineering could be your dream home come true. Now, I think that's very misleading.
Very.
I know concept art is not final, but come on. This does not look anything like the theme parks. You could say it looks like Disney Springs.
Or Downtown Disney.
Or Downtown Disney. But it's not. It doesn't look anything like the theme parks. That's kind of misleading. And that's the people who saw the headlines. That's what they were thinking of. They were thinking of, it's, and some of them quite derisively. They were saying, these Disney adults are so insufferable. Why would they're going to want to live inside the theme park? No, that's not what it is. It's just I'm not even sure what's Disney about it. But I'll read the rest of the story here.
Okay.
The new Cotino community in the heart of the Coachella Valley is billed as a creative oasis for Disneyland diehards and Mickey Mouse fans looking for new ways to make Disney a bigger part of their lives. Again, I think that's misleading, but the new Disney neighborhood around a 25-acre lake will feature estates, single-family homes, and condominiums, as well as a senior section for residents 55 and older. The Cotino development is also approved for a hotel, shopping mall, waterfront club, and private beach area. The 18-acre property, bounded by Monterey Avenue and Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra, and Gerald Ford Drives, will have 1,700 homes and 400 hotel rooms, according to the Desert Sun. Grading work is expected to begin in the next few weeks. Okay, that tells me that this has been, if you know anything about developing homes in California, that tells me this has actually been in the works a long, long time, if they're actually getting ready to do the grading work. So it makes me wonder, when did Disney's involvement in all this start?
Right.
But it says in the story, this isn't Disney's first foray into home building and community creation. Disney developed the Florida town of Celebration that opened in 1996 next to Walt Disney World. The Golden Oak community, designed by Imagineering at Disney World, that debuted in 2010, features luxury single-family homes with an average price of $10 million. Lynn, weren't you one of the first buyers there?
Oh yeah.
I mean, $10 million, that's chump change for you, right?
Yeah.
The Cotino Community Association, Waterfront Club, and Private Beach will be operated by Disney cast members. Really? So the dues-paying private membership club will offer Disney entertainment, live performances, seminars, cooking classes, and wellness programming. Recreational water activities on Cotino's Centerpiece Lake will be accessible to the general public via a day pass. Disney will not be the real estate developer, builder, or home seller of the Cotino community or any future story living project. Scottsdale-based developer DMB Development is developing the Cotino Master Plan community. And see, I'm wondering if this is just a situation where,
I'm confused.
What I think this could be a situation where somebody who works for that company, that DMB, they could be like the brother of somebody at Disney.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and maybe they got together and said, "Hey, you know what would make our community sell at higher prices would be if we can slap the Disney name on it." I'm wondering if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Also, if they are gonna have cast, because what this looks like to me is a gated community with kind of a country club.
Well,
You know,
like Christine says, it seems more like a retirement area combined with downtown Disney. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to me like a gated community that's going to be, you know, let's keep riffraff out and people can come here and have fun if they live here, and you know, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like if it is going to have Disney operations in there, I want to know where those people who are working that are going to be living. They're going to have to be. They're not going to live in that community. They're going to they're going to have to commute in. Yeah. So they're not going to get paid enough to live in that community. So yeah, I don't know. Palm Springs, maybe. Yeah,
that's what I was thinking about earlier today when I was listening to another podcast talking about this. Is that if this was something that was really a Disney thing, because now it makes sense how you said that they're like really not as involved as it seemed at first. Wouldn't they use like the whole Epcot thing as like, you know, Walt always wanted a community and blah blah blah, you know, that whole thing? You think they'd want to tie that in, but there's no mention of that. But it makes sense why there wasn't, now that you had said their involvement is not as much. Yvonne said, I know the Golden Oaks people get special perks at Walt Disney World. Will they for Disneyland?
Well, that's the thing. You know, you'd have to drive like 2 or 3 hours to get to Disneyland. Right, so right. I don't see how, you know, Golden Oaks, it makes sense because you're right there.
Right. I don't know why they picked that area.
Now, what I could see is where this does make sense to me for Disney is if they make some of the units there Disney Vacation Club.
Right. Well, John said, will Genie Plus be offered? So
yeah, I'm sure it will. We'll get to Genie Plus later.
There'll be some plus.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll, you know, if you pay more, you can, yeah. I can see them using this as a base for Adventures by Disney, like in the Coachella Valley there.
Yeah.
And yeah, but otherwise, obviously this development has been in the works for a long time. They're about to start grading, but I don't know. It's just interesting. It does not, if you look at the renderings, it does not look like you're going to be inside a theme park or anything like that, or anything like sort of an Epcot sort of thing. All right. But we'll, you know, as more becomes apparent, we'll update what we're thinking about there. See, what they want to do with this is they want to keep out, I think it's kind of make it a safer place to hang out. And the Orange County Register had the Disneyland crime blotter again.
Oh.
They have like paragraphs and paragraphs of disclaimers about how safe Disneyland really is when you consider all the numbers, but they list the crimes anyway. So, yeah, Brittany McDonald listed them, and as they say, Anaheim police responded to more than 30 calls at Disneyland in January that resulted in some type of action by officers. And here's an example. You know, Sunday, January 2nd at 3:14 p.m., assault and battery.
Wow.
There were a couple of assault and batteries throughout the month, and there's narcotics. Now, I have to wonder, was that a cast member? Brandishing a knife or non-firearm. And they explain that later on. There's like 3 or 4 of those. And as they say later on in the story, brandishing a firearm or knife involves drawing or exhibiting a weapon in a threatening manner or during a fight. But in the case of Disneyland, it almost always involves a weapon that shows up in a backpack at the security checkpoint. So, you know, when you hear the charge, you think somebody's gotten into a fight. But it could just be as simple as you're going to the security checkpoint and you have a knife in your...
It's not like they pulled one on someone or something, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like they said, I'm going to shoot you or I'm going to stab you or, Yeah, so I hope none of our listeners were the subject of any of these calls.
Most likely.
So, but, by the way, folks, all these stories are going to be available by linking through on our website, thesweepspot.com, so you can read the story in their entirety if you want to. And by the way, this is one of the times we're recording with our Patreons. So our Patreons are listening in and they're typing in their comments. So if you want to do that, join our Patreon. Okay, here comes the good news that we've been waiting for. The transformation of Mickey's Toontown at Disneyland begins soon. And this is from the official Disney Parks blog. Kelsey Lynch reports that to begin this work, Mickey's Toontown will be closed beginning March 9th and will reopen in early 2023 alongside the new attraction, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Okay, so when Mickey's Toontown reopens in 2023, it will still be home to favorite attractions such as Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. So that's not going away. That's great. Mickey's House and Minnie's House, plus other attractions, will be reimagined in new and exciting ways, including Gadget's Go Coaster, Goofy's House, and Donald's Boat. Now, how do you think those are going to be reimagined? Gadget's Go Coaster, Goofy's House, and Donald's Boat.
Just some new paint and a different name. I don't know.
maybe they'll make it Donald's House and Goofy's Boat.
Yeah.
And it'll be Gadget's Stop Coaster. I don't know. I mean, there's some speculation that they might make like Gadget's.
Yeah.
They might make Gadget's Go Coaster like Chip and Dale's Coaster or something like that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I guess
a lot of people are like, "Who's Gadget?" I mean, people that are not familiar with the '90s afternoon. Yeah.
Is that like Inspector Gadget? Yeah. No.
So.
That's
interesting, but that's good that that they're going to start that. I'm still really interested to see if they're going to get rid of the treehouse, because on that concept art, and you can't always go by concept art. I know a lot of people are examining every inch of the concept art, and it's not meant for that, but it does look like the treehouse is gone, and there's an entrance. Looks like there could be an entrance to Galaxy's Edge, which I think would be really smart, because there's the only entrance to Toontown is just the main entrance. That's going to get a little crazy, don't you think?
Right.
So, like Christine said, do any young kids know Gadget? So, yeah, it kind of goes with what we were saying.
Probably not,
Yeah.
Probably not. They probably. Now, I know what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. With Toontown closed, what's the point of bringing your kids to Disneyland? Well, fear not, because the story continues from the official Disney Parks blog. They say, even while Mickey's Toontown is closed during this transformation, there is still so much to do with your little ones in both Disneyland Park and Disney California Adventure Park. And so they start listing all the things that kids can do. It's like, yeah, I don't think there's anyone who is like, well, without Toontown, what's the point of bringing kids? So I just thought that was a little funny that, but then again, when they were first announcing that they were going to open Toontown to non-Toons, they said, well, it's so people have a place to meet Mickey Mouse. And it's like, you mean they haven't been meeting Mickey Mouse in Disneyland all this time already?
Yeah.
But I knew what they meant. They meant a specific place where they knew he was going to be there.
And you get your own moment with him too.
Well, if you pay enough, you're probably going to get a nice reservation for that. But
yeah.
Now the Orange County Register, again with Brady McDonald, they had a story headlined "What to Expect During Disneyland's Celebrate Gospel Music Festival." And I have the answer here. Here's what you can expect during Disneyland's Celebrate Gospel Music Festival. You can expect gospel music. Thank you, everybody.
Wow.
Well, they go into more depth, but they say this year's Celebrate Gospel Music Festival is in the Fantasyland Theater at Disneyland, and expands from a one-day event that it was in past years to 2 back-to-back Saturdays on February 19th and 26th. So if you're an early downloader, there's still time to go and see this, provided you've got reservations to get into the park. I'm curious as to any of our Patreons have actually, checked any of this out this year or previous years. As they say, Celebrate Gospel will showcase and highlight Black talent, experience, and culture with a variety of music from traditional gospel to contemporary acts, according to Disneyland Entertainment Team Senior Manager Veronica Horton. The February 19th Celebrate Gospel show features award-winning gospel singer, actor, and fashion designer Kiara Sheard, along with a cappella gospel group Sacred Groove. The February 26th show features Grammy Award winners Jonathan McReynolds and Molly Music, along with singers of soul a cappella group. Southern California church and community choirs that have struggled to practice during COVID-19 will also take the stage on both weekends. Downtown Disney will host even more music throughout February, which, we're still in February, with nightly concerts featuring R&B, Motown, reggae, funk, jazz, and doo-wop groups. Need a warm-up before the Celebrate Gospel shows? Gospel acts will perform every Saturday in February from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Outdoor Shopping Center next to Disneyland. Live jazz will also be offered every night in February in Disney's Grand Californian Hotel lobby and Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen in downtown Disney. So yeah, this returning Celebrate Gospel Music Festival is now part of the new Celebrate Soulfully month-long event that honors the triumphs and struggles of African Americans throughout U.S. history. Celebrate Soulfully, which celebrates the work of Black artists through music, dance, food, and stories, runs throughout February at Disneyland, DCA, Downtown Disney, and Disney's Grand Californian Hotel. So if you have checked any of that out, let us know. You can also write to us at thesweepspot@gmail.com. All right, so the official Disney Parks blog has a story on that. So if you can't read it at the Register, they've got all the information in the Disney Parks blog. There is also here's another Orange County Register story that what to expect during the 2022 Food and Wine Festival at DCA. And here I found out, Lynn, here's what you can expect at the Food and Wine Festival. You can expect food and wine.
Oh, okay.
So,
surprising.
As they point out, it's running through March 4th through April 26th, and it'll feature celebrity and Disney chefs who will offer cooking tips during culinary demonstrations, tasting seminars, and signature events. Among this year's celebrity chefs is Iron Chef America floor reporter Jet Tila, Chopped champion, and Adia, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, Adia chef owner Shachi Mira, and American Barbecue Showdown judge Kevin Bledsoe. So, yeah, if you recognize those names, then you might want to check it out. Kids ages 3 to 11 years old can take part in a free hands-on cupcake decorating course inspired by the new Alice's Wonderland Bakery show on Disney Junior. Alice's Wonderland Bakery Unbirthday Party will be hosted by Raleigh Penn, along with Alice and Princess Rosa from the show. Space will be limited, and participants can sign up 45 minutes before the courses start at the Hollywood Backlot stage. So if you're 12 years old, sorry, you're out of luck. It's 3 to 11. Some important information about this all, though, is unused Sip and Savor cards from the 2020 Food and Wine Festival, cut short by the coronavirus closure, ding, 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 of the parks, cannot be used during the 20 and 22 Food and Wine Festival. So you're out of luck if you've been holding on to the 2020 cards. Sorry, you're just out of luck.
Well, what about, can they use the 2021 cards?
It doesn't say they can't, so maybe they can. The unused Sip and Savor cards. What about the unused Chug and Plug? I don't know. Anyway, I wonder if any of our Patreons have enjoyed the Food and Wine Festival. Hopefully not too much.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Laughing Place also covered that story. My Shed as a preview of the Food and Wine Festival, and again, all these links are at thesweepspot.com. The official Disney Parks blog covered it, so you can get all your information quite easily and for free at those links. But something that's tied into that, to the Food and Wine Festival, is that Soarin' Over California returns for a limited run during the Disney's Food and Wine Fest.
Yes.
So I know you're looking forward to that. Soaring Over California returns for a limited run starting on March 4th, just in time for Disney's Food and Wine Festival at the Anaheim theme park. An end date for Soaring Over California hasn't been announced yet. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. I'm in that film somewhere.
Yes. I'm sure that's what everybody says. They come off of that going, I saw Lynn Barron.
That's right.
And
I am in there somewhere. I think I'm on the left side as it goes down Main Street. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I always enjoy it, and it seems like most people that I talk to or hear enjoy the Soarin' Over California over the Soarin'. Did you see the Soarin' one?
Huh. I've seen them both.
Okay. It definitely the Soarin' Over California is not as clear, the film quality, because it's older.
Yeah.
But if they kind of updated that a little bit, I think it just makes sense. I mean, California Adventure, and then we have a film about California. But,
Well, yeah. Soaring Over the World is... the one thing I like about Soaring Over the World is it actually has transitions where, Soaring Over California, it's just like, okay, jump cut,
Yeah,
you're flying over here, but now you're flying over there, and
yeah,
it's like, what?
The Patreons agree. Yvonne said that Soaring is the main reason. She wishes she could go in the next few months. John said he thought he saw me in the film. Christine said Over California should stay. They should just keep them both. They they have the two theaters, but then, they could, or do like a random thing. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Well, they had a Super Bowl victory parade at Disneyland because there was the Super Bowl. I know nobody talked about it, but there was a Super Bowl since we last recorded. And the Los Angeles Rams won. They got to go to Disneyland. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Matthew Stafford made good on their post-game promise and showed up at Disneyland for Victory Parade down Main Street, USA, in honor of the Rams' win in the Super Bowl. Now, it says Disneyland threw a Super Bowl cavalcade for the victorious trio on Monday, February 14th, less than 24 hours after the Rams defeated the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20 to win the NFL championship on their home field at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. Just a 30-mile trek from the Anaheim theme park. Well, when they say 30 miles, with traffic, you're probably talking like an hour at least.
Yeah.
To get from one place to the other. But as they say in the story, blue, gold, and white confetti rain down as the Rams parade floats made its way down Disneyland's main promenade. Gotta have the confetti. Lynn.
Lots of confetti.
Confetti makes everything better. Yeah, within minutes, Disneyland's janitorial team were hard at work, sweeping up with brooms, leaf blowers, and vacuums as kids tossed handfuls of confetti carpeting Main Street into the air. I'll tell you what else happened. I know, because this used to always happen. Mm-hmm. Some of those kids were like, I want to take this home. So they packed a bunch I don't know, into like a bag. Oh. And then they got up to like somewhere like Toontown or Critter Country or Galaxy's Edge, and then they just kind of let it all fall out all over the place.
Yeah, I remember.
I'm pretty sure it happened.
Yeah, I remember seeing that all the time, especially after the Angels Parade. I was finding confetti in Critter Country. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's like, how did this get over here? Was it windy? No. But as they say in the story here, believe it or not, Rams defensive tackle Donald said he hadn't been asleep yet after staying up late to celebrate after the Rams championship victory and getting up early for the Super Bowl parade at Disneyland. His first visit to the park. Mm-hmm. So this guy hadn't been to Disneyland before, but now that he's won the Super Bowl, he can afford it.
Oh, good.
So, Cup, Donald, and Stafford filmed the famous What's Next commercial with their families after the Super Bowl on the confetti-strewn SoFi Stadium field as fans in the stands headed for the exits. And the story goes into like the history of the commercial. And as they point out, the Disneyland theme parks TV commercial tradition began in 1987 when New York Giants quarterback Phil Simms yelled, "I'm going to Disney World," after the Super Bowl. Disney paid Simms $75,000 to make the proclamation during the on-field celebration immediately following the Giants Super Bowl 21 victory, according to Sports Illustrated.
I'll say it for a little bit
so
less
he
than
can
that.
afford me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, inflation, Lynn. You can ask for a little bit more.
Okay.
But here's a little bit of trivia, and I'm sure you know this, Lynn. Let me put on my Jim Korkis hat. Okay, Lynn. What was the origin of the idea to do these ads?
I don't know the exact answer, but I know it has something to do with Michael Eisner and his wife. Is that correct?
Correct. That is correct, Lynn. Okay. So, because they were hosting, there were these pilots who had flown around the world on in an experimental airplane that they got around the world like a single tank of fuel, right? And I forget their names. I think Dick Rutan was one of them, but there were two of them. And they were having dinner with the Eisners, and they said, "Well, so now what are you going to do? Now that you've done this?" And they kind of chuckled and said, "Well, actually, we're going to go to Disneyland." And Jane Eisner turned to Michael and said, "You have to use that. You got to make an ad out of that." And it was and she was right. It was a brilliant advertisement. You've just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do next? I'm going to Disneyland. So, yeah, that was it. Chalk one up to Jane Eisner there. So, anyway, okay. There was official Disney Parks blog coverage of that if you really want to see that. Okay. Some really important stuff here for all of you shareholders. Disneyland sets revenue record thanks to Genie Plus spending. Yes. So, another Brady McDonald story, but they say Disneyland and Walt Disney World achieved record revenue during the recent winter holiday season thanks to higher attendance, increased spending, and an embrace of the new Genie Plus line cutting service that left Disney executives, quote, blown away. Yeah, end quote. Disney's theme parks in Anaheim and Florida hit record revenue and operating income levels in the first quarter of 2022 that ran from October 3rd through January 1st, according to the company's earnings call on Wednesday, February 9th. Disney Parks Experience and Products revenue doubled to $7.2 billion. in the first quarter compared to $3.6 billion during the same period in 2021. Of course, as they point out, Disneyland was closed during the company's first quarter in 2021, while Walt Disney World was at a reduced attendance capacity. Disney's international parks experienced similar pandemic-related closures and restrictions during the last 3 months of 2020, which covered the company's first quarter of 2021. Now, just to be clear, revenue does not necessarily equal profit. So it's that's just the money coming in. It's still a lot of money, though, $7.2 billion. Okay, the big surprise is Genie Plus and Lightning Lane, which helped raise average per capita ticket revenue on both coasts. So apparently that's working out well. Visitor spending at Disneyland and Disney World was up more than 40% compared to the first quarter of 2019 before the pandemic, thanks in part to Genie Plus and Lightning Lane purchases. Wow. So it is, I guess they're happy with that. Now I guess we can expect to see more stuff included in Lightning Lane and Genie Plus. What do you think? I wonder if any of our Patreons have anything to say about that. I will say that Genie, it occurred to me, this is more of a thing for, if you're a key holder and you're going all the time, those upgrades really add up. If you're always doing it, it's going to be a lot more expensive. Now, if you're somebody who's only, you're only visiting once every 5 years,
right?
You're already paying all this money to fly out for your hotel room, for entrance. What's a few more? That's nothing to get Genie Plus and Lightning Lane. And if that saves you time, so that you can experience more things, those people, I think, are more likely to say, I have no problem spending this money, to cut the lines. And
what I am wondering?
Yeah, so is yes.
Part of this is the Magic Keys, which everyone signed up. It's a lot like a majority of the people, when they opened them up for sale, majority of those people bought them in the beginning, but a lot of people are unhappy with the way it's been run. So I'm wondering, come August, because then it'll be a whole year, if you'll see a drop-off in that. We'll have to see. But I know that contributes to the sales too, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Good question. We'll have to see what happens.
Right.
And the moment you have been waiting for is finally upon us. Disneyland parking trams finally return after nearly 2 years. Mm-hmm. The parking trams that shuttle visitors between the Mickey and Friends and Pixar Pal garages and the front gates of Disneyland and DCA will return on February 23rd, according to Disney officials. Now, here's a question. Mm-hmm. What are the odds they're going to raise the parking prices on February 23rd? I think they're pretty good that they're going to raise the parking prices. What are they going to? Are they going to offer Lightning Lane for the trams, so you don't have to wait?
Yeah.
I think they'll raise parking prices.
I don't think they will right away.
Okay, so
I don't think they will right away. But I think
I don't know. I think they're going to say, "Look, the parking lot trams are back. It's let's raise up the parking rates."
Yeah, maybe, huh?
I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
Any visit to Disneyland and DCA involves a lot of walking. The tram route is about the same length as the distance from the Disneyland front gate to the back of the park in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The trek from Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run to Toy Story Midway Mania at the back of DCA is about a mile. Savvy visitors and annual pass holders have already figured out a way to avoid the long walk to and from the parking garages. The Toy Story surface parking lot on the southeast corner of the resort, which reopened in mid-June. The Toy Story lot offers bus transportation to and from the entry esplanade between Disneyland and DCA. Security screening at the Toy Story lot during peak hours allows arriving visitors to bypass the Esplanade security station and head straight to the theme park turnstiles. Clever. Yeah, and Mice Chat covers the trams returning, and as they point out, during the closure, some refurbishments were made to the tram route. The loading zone was repaved, and new sensors were placed in the pavement, and they installed King Kong. Oh, wait, that's a tram at a different resort. Never mind. That's not, no.
Okay.
That's not, I'm sorry. I got mixed up with the tram somewhere else. I'm sorry. So.
Okay.
So the trams are back.
Awesome.
They're also, mask requirements are changing. Disneyland and DCA will no longer require vaccinated visitors. Let's be honest, they don't know who's vaccinated and who isn't. So this is going to basically be everybody to wear masks indoors. So you're no longer going to require mask wearing indoors starting on Thursday, February 17th. So that's already in effect. Unvaccinated visitors will still be required to wear masks indoors at the Anaheim theme parks. Of course, no one's going to know. California will lift a statewide COVID-19 health and safety mandate requiring masks indoors after Tuesday, February 15th. Obviously, this story was written before that. So, things are loosening up. All Disneyland visitors, regardless of vaccination status, will be required to wear masks while traveling on enclosed transportation. That includes the shuttle buses traveling between Toy Story parking lot and the theme park front entrances. The Disneyland monorail is currently closed for refurbishment through March 6th, with no word yet if the enclosed transportation system will require masks when it returns.
What's the difference? You know what I mean?
Well, I do know that if you're eating something that you can't get sick because you don't have to wear a mask then. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that story was also covered by Laughing Place. So you can get all the details there if you'd like. Like I said, we'll have links to all these stories at thesweepspot.com. Micechat.com, as always, they have a couple of Disneyland updates. These updates are always really heavy with the pictures. Yeah. So if you want to get a close look at what things are looking like, you can click through on those. Well, the first one was Disneyland News Update. Success ruins everything. And that was from Mike Kendrick, and that's February 7th. And as he says, it's been another busy week at Disneyland Resort between the Lunar New Year Festival, Sweethearts Night, After Hours Party, and the kickoff of Magic Key Holder Appreciation Month. There's been a lot going on, but of course it isn't all sparkles and smiles. Many Disneyland locations have been struggling with big crowds and staffing issues, a combination which leads to long lines. There's a lot to cover this week, so let's get started. And yes, we are coming towards the end of current events, so if you have anything else to say about any of the topics we've covered, all our Patreons, if you can ask questions, make statements, whatever, get those in now. So the other update was... Yes, proclamations, declarations, shameless plugs. MiceChat.com had another Disneyland update called Happy Feet Upcoming Eats Football Cleats, and that was also by Mike Kendrick, and that was from February 14th. By the way, did you notice that the Super Bowl, the NFL changed their schedule, right?
Yeah.
So the Super Bowl is later in February. It used to be in January.
Yeah.
Then it was early February, and now it's heading towards mid-February. Well, guess what? Guess in 2027, unless I'm mistaken, Super Bowl Sunday will be Valentine's Day in 2027. What do you think that's going to do to some couples?
Oh boy.
And I also think it's a rotten thing to do to restaurants too. because both of those are big days for restaurants, and why, they should not be the same day. I wouldn't be surprised if that year, if in 2026, if NFL starts their season a week early, so just so they could avoid that. But
it's true.
Anyway, so yeah, those MagShot.com updates are great. And Lynn, have you been keeping up on what the closures are?
I have. So it says here the monorail is coming back on March 7th. Then we have the subs. The subs are still down. They have, according to people that have been there more recently, there's still a sign, saying coming winter 2022. So I don't know. I mean, winter's going to be coming to the end here soon. And their calendar goes all the way.
They'll pop back up on February 20th. They'll pop back up.
Yeah. Well, their calendar goes all the way to April 1st, and the subs are still down. So I don't know what is happening there. The Mark Twain is coming back February 25th. The sailing ship Columbia comes back on March 28th. Splash Mountain returns on March 8th. The Treehouse, Tarzan's Treehouse, no return date yet. That was supposed to come back in fall of 2021. No. And then Grizzly River Run, April 1st. The Matterhorn is down from February 28th until March 4th. So not that's a week? So I don't know what they're doing with that. You can't do a whole lot in a week, but Little Mermaid is down 28th to the 4th also. Indy's going down March 8th to March 14th. That's about a week there. And this is the big one. Pirates is going down on March 14th, and there's no return date posted yet. And then it doesn't surprise me. Remember
maybe they're taking it out.
Remember on my last visit, I had mentioned about all the things that needed repairs. So as much as we don't want to see it go down, it's going to go down the day before I get there on my next trip. So that's too bad. But I'm glad that they're addressing some of these issues. I'm really interested to see if the Jack Sparrow animatronics stay or not. Just because it's been a while since they've had.
Why is this contract up?
Yeah. No, I don't know. No, but then the animatronic at the end of the attraction, his lips hasn't been moving the last few times I've been there, and it just he's
a ventriloquist.
His arms kind of waving around and weird. It's just it needs some work. So hopefully that'll all get addressed in this next thing here. Christine was saying, wonder if they're having supply worker issues with Tarzan and the subs. Possibly. I think once we see water filling back up in the sub lagoon, then we'll know it's getting closer. So. All right. Well,
subs takes a lot of operating labor.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you try to estimate how long something will take, and it always takes longer than that. They should have said
if
summer,
anyone's ever,
and then
everybody's ever worked on a project like a home project or something, or it almost always takes longer than you anticipated. So
it does,
it can happen, especially when you do have supply chain issues or labor issues or anything like that. So, but I don't know. It's pretty difficult to just keep up on all these closures, these openings, and the changing mask rules, and where you can buy your next house out in the desert. So what I'm going to recommend is that people contact concierge.com. That's CONCIEARS.com, and plan your next Disney getaway vacation with them, because it's not going to add any expense to your vacation planning, and they keep up to date on everything that's happening with Disney. That's what they focus on. That is their specialty. So if you want to go to Walt Disney World or Disney's Aulani in Hawaii or Disneyland or Adventures by Disney or the Disney Cruise Line, there's some new ships coming online. So contact Concierge, because they are magical vacation planning partners. They're going to take a lot of the stress out of planning your trip. They can get you reservations. They can answer your questions. So go to concierge.com. Book your next Disney getaway vacation with them as a package, like a week on the cruise or a hotel stay with theme park tickets, and tell them the Sweet Spot sent you, and you can get a special gift. Thanks to our friends and our partners at concierge.com.
Great. So, Josh, what are your earliest memories of Disneyland? Did you grow up in Southern California going there as a child?
Yeah, I grew up in Ontario, Upland, Rancho Cucamonga area. So we grew up going to Disneyland frequently, all the time. I mean, I can't say exactly how frequent. All I know is that, from my earliest memories, I just knew Disneyland existed. So I don't have, this memory of a first time, but I do have plenty of photos of me, being held by siblings and things like that as an infant at Disneyland. But some of my, youngest memories are of like America Sings.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that always made such a big impression on me from a young age up until the time when it unfortunately closed. Special event nights, being able to go back when there used to be, smaller, intimate special event nights throughout the week.
Yeah.
I missed those. 1 a.m. closings.
Oh, yeah.
Good or bad, I still do miss the fact that, you could have that last 2 or 3 hours of the night where it felt like nobody else was there. I mean, I get why it's not continually that way, but still, it was so nice to be a local and to realize that, for those last couple hours of the night, you just felt like you had free reign of the park.
So you're that
yeah.
are you that age group where you were a teenager, like during the Videopolis days, or?
Yeah,
I was too. Yeah.
Yep, that was definitely the time frame.
Yeah, right.
I came across I don't know what year it was, but one of my old annual passes in a box not too long ago, and I just kind of laughed. I mean, it was definitely from the teenage years, where it was laminated there at the front of the park type of annual pass after they took your photo.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go into like designing, or like did you have any idea that you wanted to be an Imagineer or what it was?
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, my exposure, I think, came from a lot of the same places that we were all starting to hear about it. I mean, Disney Channel was doing, little snippets on Imagineering. Disney News / Disney Magazine / Magic Kingdom Club, whatever iteration you want to refer to it as. Finding out that there was this entity that was responsible for that. When you're really little, you don't really realize those kind of things. But as you start to get older and you start thinking about, the potential of where I'm going to work someday. I mean, you know, you go from the when I'm old enough, I'm going to work on the Jungle Cruise to the when I'm old enough, I'm going to design the Jungle Cruise. It's just graduating up, you know, to the different levels of what you're exposed to. I don't remember the exact time in which I was made aware of WED Enterprises, but I was intrigued by it definitely, you know, early on. And our family owned and operated a community theater in Southern California, so really the stage environment, the live entertainment, all of that was a pretty good translation to what Disneyland was to me. And I mean, even, you know, as it is when you're that close to the park, you know, a lot of our actors at our theater, you know, would work at Disneyland, and I would hear their stories about, you know, this and that, and was intrigued by it. And it wasn't until I was at Walt Disney Imagineering, you know, so many years later, that I found out that Bob Weiss, who's, you know, a name that we know now, but that Bob Weiss actually used to do shows at our family's theater. I have photos of him that he sent me, you know, when he was in Fiddler on the Roof and things like that. And I'm like, huh, see, I was too little to really know and understand that. But I mean, I'm already probably diverging this off onto a path, but
it's fine.
We had a theater group at Imagineering for a while called the Flower Street Players, and we were doing a musical called The Boyfriend, and we'd gone through rehearsals and everything, and it was opening night. We're backstage, little place just right off the campus, and we're getting ready for the show, and then the girl who was the lead in the show, Pam Dahl, she comes backstage yelling my name, and she was actually assistant to Marty, you know, in that time frame, in that period of Imagineering, but she's calling my name, and I'm like, what did I do? Why am I in trouble? What's going on? And she comes in and she goes, "Is your dad Mark Shipley?" And I go, "Oh yeah." And she goes, "I used to do shows at your theater. I was in My Fair Lady." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "I remember you in diapers." And I'm like, "Ooh, now I'm really embarrassed." But you know, it's funny how, you know, years later in that professional capacity of Walt Disney Imagineering, it's like all of a sudden finding out it's like, you know, the people like Pam and you know, Bob Weiss, and there were several others where you go, huh, you either remember me as a child, or you more likely like were influenced by my dad and my mom and dad both. Actually, Bob Weiss actually referred to my dad at one point as one of his mentors when he was young. So I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good compliment. And so, you know, just that kind of connection as a kid kind of led me into that field of, hey, let's design and do theater, but on a big Disney theme park level.
Pam's actually mentioned in our first book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we there was a time we had a presentation by the Sherman Brothers backstage at Disneyland, and she came and sang one of the songs. So, and I had first met Pam when I was still in high school. So, yeah. So it was a good name to hear.
When was that presentation? Was I there? How long ago was that?
99, 2000, somewhere in there.
Probably around there sometime. Yeah.
I don't know. I
it was. They did. I think they signed. I think they signed Walt's time afterwards.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. No, that sounds. It sounds likely. Like I could have been, you know, sitting with you guys or in the shadows somewhere enjoying, you know, what was happening.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you become Imagineer? Like, how did that happen for you?
Well, you know what? For the sake of those who may have heard the story before, I won't go into it because I talk and talk and talk. But the shortened version is I knew that's where I wanted to be, as we kind of pointed out, but my resume and skill set was more aligned with those that were over at Feature Animation. I had taken I had gone out to Florida on the college program, actually, and worked on the Great Movie Ride. And so that was kind of like my intro into ops. My wife actually was a sweeper at Disneyland just before the Florida thing, because we weren't married at the time, but she also went out to Florida and worked out there, and she was in outdoor vending. But that was just kind of like the intro into officially working, for the Walt Disney Company, as being on the ops side, which I loved then, and I speak fondly of it now. But as I was coming out of that experience, it was, I was still there as a casual temp, but living back here on West Coast, and it was like, how am I going to get into Imagineering and get my foot in the door that way? And I guess I'll keep interviewing at animation, which is exactly what I was doing. And I was meeting with a lot of people at animation. I just kept getting passed along, because I went in, I'll be a PA, I'll do anything. And then everybody just kept passing me along, and I was interviewing. Well, in the meantime, my brother, who also, grew up in the backstage environment of the theater, was a scenic artist and going to animation school. And he got picked up. He was in animation school, and met a guy named Mark that was there. And Mark actually was one of the scenic artisans, painters for Imagineering, and said, hey, come on over and help us out. So he brought my brother on. I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous. I mean, that's cool. You're over there. You're painting stuff. That's kind of cool. It wasn't necessarily my direct skill set, but I was like, so cool that my brother got in over there. And then after several months, he was over there for quite a bit. He gave me a call and he said, hey, if you can get here tomorrow, we could use some help on painting stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not really, a scenic artisan like you. And he goes, no. Think of it as painting sets with Dad, getting ready for the show. And I went, oh no, I know that world. And he goes, that's exactly it. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. So that was actually that foot in the door. It wasn't a completely blind, random, like, I don't know what Imagineering is. And unfortunately, and I know this is disheartening to listeners, there are a lot of people at Imagineering who had never heard of Imagineering before they got their job offer. That wasn't the case with me. For me, it was like, I wanted to be there. I just didn't know exactly what window was going to be opened up for me, or the door was going to be opened up. And that was it, actually. So my very first day, I was fireproofing backdrops for... It was either something at Animal Kingdom, because that's what we were building at the time, or Disney Fest Asia, which was a touring show that was going through Asia, or was about to go through Asia. I don't remember, because both things were in production there. And for me, it was nondescript. I was, black fireproofing paint, and I was as happy as I could be. I'm like, I don't care. I'm at Imagineering, and there's cool stuff all around me, and this is cool. That snowballed into one opportunity after another, and then, I mean, for an accumulation of 21 years before I left, with a lot of things that I did in those 21 years.
Well, what are your specialties in terms of, writing? I mean, you can sing, we know that. But
you didn't warn me about that.
I mean, what are your specialties?
Well, unfortunately, against my desires to find proper placement in those 21 years, I was often the jack of all trades, master of none. The reason I say that is because you brought up things like writing. It's like, well, yeah, I did do some writing, and I did stuff for the D23 magazine and some Japanese Disney magazines and things like that. But that wasn't my core skill set. You mentioned singing. Well, that's the theater side, but that's the performing would allow me to do like scratch track recordings at work, and even some voiceovers that ended up in parks. But it wasn't my core, skill set. If I were to say there was a core skill set, it's probably what I relied on the heaviest in those 21 years, and I would identify that as a multimedia designer. So a lot of the times when I would find the greatest strength on a project was when I had the ability to put my Photoshop and my Premiere and Final Cut skills to work. And in fact, I mean, that's how Tony and I ended up getting the Lincoln project sold, was building the show beat for beat from beginning to end, load to unload, through multimedia. And I sat down and did that. So, if we're to talk about what's that key skill set, I mean, I'm going to say, I'm happiest when I'm sitting in front of, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, Final Cut. But that was not my day to day. In fact, I mean, if we're talking a percentage of those 21 years, I probably sat in front of Photoshop like 75% of that time. But the video stuff, I mean, that I really, do enjoy, 10% of my career there. So
I think an organization like that, I think, does need, you were saying jack of all trades. I think if everybody is just pigeonholed into really narrow spaces, it's good to have some of the staff like that, but you also need people who are going from place to place, I think.
The difficulty with that is, at one point they put me in the creative designers group, which, from title and expectation, that sounds like a pretty good alignment. But the problem with that was, pretty much everybody that sat with the creative designers was an illustrator, an artist of some sort with hand drawing, which is not my skill set. So, they would go to the head of that department and say, we're looking for somebody that can help us out on this and this and this, that type of project. And I was never that somebody that the department head could say, hey, you should use Shipley, because that pigeonhole existed for that kind of a title. Nobody was coming over there to the creative designer saying, hey, we need somebody that can help us build out something, with multimedia. So I started finding more and more strengths with more of like the events teams and things like that. Like when D23 finally came about with the expos, I'm like, finally, a team, even though they weren't Imagineering, it was still, colleagues that I worked with a lot. I'm finally doing stuff that was using that multimedia a lot. So I, was producing and doing a lot of the panels and presentations and things like that for the expo. Whether it was behind the scenes because I built it, or on the stage like with Tony and things like that, it was, I'm finally like putting all of these visuals and audio, skills to work. And on that day to day in Glendale, it was actually hard to identify me because of those things.
You mentioned the Lincoln show, and you're referencing Tony Baxter. What can you tell our guests, or our guests, tell our listeners more about the Lincoln show that they might have experienced as guests, and or maybe they didn't? So give a little explanation, and that can sort of lead off into anything else that you've done at Disneyland that people listening might have experienced.
Yeah, there's been several iterations of great moments with Mr. Lincoln, starting with the 1964-65 New York World's Fair. And that opened in New York in 64, and then actually a secondary show was being planned and built for Disneyland to open in 65 before the fair even closed. So it was actually running in both locations, in Anaheim and New York, for a short period of time. That was, passion project of Walt. He was always an advocate for Americana, but also, loved Lincoln in particular. And that's the show that came out of that. But over the years at Disneyland, it had, a few different revisions, and, whether it was, small little things that were changed in the show historically or major. I think unfortunately, I can't say the exact years because I'm not remembering right now, but the first big change, I think, was it late 80s, early 90s, with the addition of two brothers from Epcot, the American Adventure show. They also took out Battle Hymn of the Republic for the finale at that point, and put in Golden Dreams from American Adventure, and all of that was, a good feel, and it was a good update for the show. The next big change for that, I think, was 2001, 2, 3, somewhere in there. And that was the version that used binaural headphones, headset that you'd go in and you'd put on and get a haircut before going out to fight the Civil War. And then that space was used for Disneyland's 50th anniversary to show the Steve Martin, Donald Duck, 50th, really great film on the history of Disneyland. And that ran more than the 50th and kept running in there. And so that's when Tony and I, actually it was Tony coming to me saying, I'm wondering how we can get Lincoln back in that space. I'm afraid that, what's sitting there behind the screen is just falling apart, and, we may not have, Walt's attraction back. He goes, I think we're going to have to take a different approach with it, though. The attention spans of today's audience are shorter. Very true. Some of the things in the show itself, just in wording, aren't necessarily understood or out of context. And so he sat down and he did a first revision of the original James Alger script and showed me, and he's like, what if we did something like this? And nobody was asking for it. It was purely just Tony, saying, is there a way for us to honor Walt's original intent for Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln and somehow bring the show back so that it doesn't just go away forever? And I went through and I said, yeah, a lot of this makes sense. Let me see what I can do from it, theatrically. And so I pulled all of the audio, and I literally mean all of the audio. I mean, every track, every recording by Royal Dano and Paul Frees, and every recording by the studio choir, and the multi-tracks that existed for that, and then all of the albums that were recorded, and the multi-tracks for all of the albums. And I started editing and cutting together a show, and then decided to put visuals against it, and we created, the show that opened there in 2009, December of 2009, and I don't know the current status. I believe it still, opens from time to time, now, but it hasn't been updated or shuttered that I'm aware of. And there's a lot in there about how we went about pitching it, because, like I said, nobody was asking for it, so we had to go to it was Ed Greer was the president of the Disneyland Resort at the time. We had to go to him and say, we think you really want this show. And he was like, I wasn't budgeting for this, but fortunately for us, at the end of the pitch, he said, I think I really want this show. And we used some work that was going on at R&D to update the head so that it was more expressive. Interesting thing about that is, Lincoln is more stoic, but the technology that went into that is just off the charts, and has led to, a lot of other audio animatronic figures in that time since then. But we had test footage of Lincoln, which I actually referred to as the Scooby-Doo show, just on his head, because his expressions were very animated cartoon, like zoinks and things like that. You would never see that, in Disneyland, because that's not in character. But from a technological standpoint, it is capable of that level of expression. And one of those greater compliments when it opened actually came from Bob Gurr, and he said he sat down close right in the center because he wanted to really analyze what had been done to that figure. And he said he thoroughly enjoyed the animation and seeing, all the little nuances of what was going on and the improvements that were made and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the Lincoln show. And if you're lucky and they're open, you can go in and join a few people and sit down and enjoy what I consider to be a really good show.
Yeah, as far as I remember, they're still showing it. I mean, when I was there a couple of weeks ago, it was going from open to close. Yeah.
Well, and my friend, I don't know if you've talked to or know Brandon Clyley. He actually sent me a screen grab on Sunday. He was watching Modern Family, and it just happened to be the episode where they're at Disneyland, and the episode ends with them all with their arms around each other, watching Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. And I thought, that's nice that even then with that show, it was the whole episode was used to be comedic and funny, and the pains of this and that and running around and the roller coasters making you sick and all that kind of thing. But then the heartfelt button at the end was Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. I thought, that's nice.
Yeah, I hope it never goes away.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're going to get Liam Neeson to replace the animatronic.
Okay.
I'm confusing him with what's his name from My Left Foot or whatever, Gangs of New York. That method actor, and
I know who. Yeah, why are we blanking? I know who you're talking about. It's
yeah.
I know.
Oh well, that's not important.
That guy.
People are screaming at the radio right now.
I know. They're like, "How could you be forgetting?" I don't know. It's just one of those things. Sorry. I almost had it. Dang it.
So, what other things at Disneyland have you been involved with, if at all?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, a lot of people, would go out on international projects, and I did work on, pretty much every park. But I was always stationed right out of Glendale, functioning out of, for many years, a department that I created called Digital Show Production. So I would do a lot of the things there at the home base, and then they would go out to, Tokyo and all, Paris and Hong Kong and all that. But being close to Anaheim, I was able to be involved with boots on the ground a lot more with those projects. New Tomorrowland was one. And I know a lot of us tend to go, New Tomorrowland. But there were a lot of fun things that happened during that time. It was, rocket rods, for those of you who, did experience rocket rods. It was in one of the meetings early on one of the days, and Bruce Gordon talked about, is it possible for us to do, blueprints, because the queue, it just isn't looking, like it's got enough. And it was like, how do we dress it out? And for those of you who know the history of it, that attraction itself went through a lot of budgetary problems, which had to do a test track out at Epcot. But because of that, all of a sudden it was like, how are we going to turn this into something without the sponsorship budgets that we needed in place? And so Bruce was like, can we do these oversized blueprints or whatever? And because I was digital show production, creating this whole digital realm for show production, I'm like, well, let me figure that out. And so I went and pulled blueprints for a lot of the classic Tomorrowland attractions and scanned them high res, and reached out to a local vendor that we were using on some stuff and asked them if it was possible to do blacklight printing at the dimensions that I was asking. And they said, yeah, we can do blacklight. We've been testing a lot of stuff in-house. It's all custom. We can see how it looks. And, and that ended up being, these big oversized attraction vehicle blueprints that were in the queue, which, it's a little thing, but I had a great time taking that just because Bruce said it, I'm like, sure, let me figure that out. And then, had to do a rocket rod one, but also then I'd been working on the Moonliner. And so the Moonliner one that I put in there, I hid my initials in there because I had also oversaw the graphic paint on the Moonliner at that time. And I'm like, okay, there's a little tribute to me in the blueprint. I put my initials under the cockpit, and little things like that were fun. The working on again, because we're talking New Tomorrowland, but and the Moonliner, having to install the Moonliner graphic that said Moonliner, the Spirit of Refreshment on it. I'm on a scissor lift that I had totally wedged myself up into that inner ring, Austin Power style. And I'm standing on this edge, 2 a.m. or whatever, applying this graphic. And it was the night before the grand opening, because I believe it was Mario Andretti Jr. was up on the rocket rod track rehearsing. And I could just, see him up there. And I'm like, this is crazy. And I'm in the, in Tomorrowland, where I, grew up as a kid, and I'm putting this graphic on this rocket, and there's this, NASCAR champion over here. I don't know, things like that were like, how did I get here? And this is cool. I'm not like trying to sway anybody's opinions about, certain aspects of how that new Tomorrowland project, came and gone. But, there were a lot of fun, enjoyable things. Also, something in that general time frame is a little bit after that project, but still, with the Disneyland Forever project, I was involved with that, which is the custom CDs to build your own music system. So I was involved with that, as well as the one that went to Florida. A lot of pitch work. I mean, the Finding Nemo submarine voyage. I mean, we were actively trying to save the subs, before they were even closed. And it was Bob Baronick and I hanging the big banner out on the tent over the sub lagoon that said Atlantis Expedition and all that kind of stuff. It only lasted like an hour or so before it was demanded. But I mean, those kind of things, and it's funny because that banner got pulled down, but I had made an Atlantean flag, a custom Atlantean flag that flew over that tent, and that was never asked to be pulled down. I'm like, haha, it's still there. I mean, just random stuff left and right. A lot of California adventure stuff, for better and for worse. But I mean, right up to the very end. I mean, the last project that I was a part of in terms of opening an attraction, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. So, tons of stuff. Did the co-created the Disney Kingdoms comic book series by Marvel, and the reason that's coming to mind is because they ended up being sold in parks, and anytime I'd go to the park, I would double check. I'm like, yes, our comic book is still being sold in the parks. I feel cool. So,
yeah.
Oh, tons of random stuff.
I still can't believe I forgot Daniel Day-Lewis's name.
Yeah, that's
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah.
All I knew was D. It was like there's a D in there somewhere.
You mentioned those blueprints, the black lines. That was like the best part of that queue.
Thanks.
That was great. I mean, yeah, a lot of people just they don't realize. They go, oh well, Rocket Rod. It's like, or the Finding Nemo. What about the original song? It's like they don't get it. It's the same thing with the Tarzan's Treehouse. They go, I want the original Swiss Family. It's like you don't get it. Those things wouldn't be there.
No, I mean, have you guys discussed that? I mean, Ken, you know that story with Tarzan's Treehouse in particular, right? I mean,
yeah. It wouldn't be there if it weren't for Tarzan. I mean, it would have been. People think stuff wouldn't be torn out and replaced with a store or something.
That's just it. Yeah. Physically, that tree would be gone. The Disney dendron would be ripped out and gone. And if it weren't for Tarzan, we wouldn't have that. And it's, so you do have to kind of take those bits of criticisms and just within the context of what people know and what they're aware of.
Right.
But if you knew, and I mean, it's same with like Country Bear. I'm a big Country Bear fan.
Yeah.
But nothing against Winnie the Pooh, but I love Country Bear. But if it weren't Country Bear, it was going to be Mr. Toad, and then Mr. Toad wouldn't exist anywhere in the world anymore. So if that is actually the scale that was weighed back and forth. It was, is it going to be that or is it going to be that? Because that was the ultimatum that was being given. Was it's either of those locations, and it was like, then I guess Country Bear's got to go.
Yeah,
and
it's unfortunate.
Yes, yeah, it is sad, but
it's out in Florida. You have, like you pointed out, we've got Toad, and Florida's got Country Bears. So.
Right, and when you start hearing just those tiny little stories, you go, all right, maybe I'm still sad that attraction's gone, but now some things are starting to make sense. I mean, we knew when we announced, we meaning really Joe Rohde announced Guardians of the Galaxy going into Tower of Terror. It was like, oh man, people are going to be up in arms over this one, and we knew it.
There's petitions.
We also knew that, but that it's like, we just need to get through this year, because it was a quick turnaround, right? It's like, we just need to get through this year, and people are going to be okay with it. And fortunately, people were okay with it. But it also, you fall back on that. Sometimes you miss Tower of Terror. But what's fun is I worked on that original version for DCA as well, and people were hating all over that thing because it was Tower Light. The good ones out in Florida. You're like, ugh. And then so many years later, when people had finally grown attached to it and had this affinity for it, they're like, "How dare you take out Tower of Terror?" You're like, oh well,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was, I love Tower of Terror. I love Twilight Zone.
Yeah, me too.
And I had never seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but I still really enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Because it's still fun. And I mean, and Rhodey was right. I mean, from the very get-go, he's like, it's got to be the music. It's like that sequence is already inherent to action and fun. So we know people are going to physically have fun on that ride system. But it's like you crank that up with a good soundtrack and good music, and he's right, because all of a sudden you got people dancing and laughing even though they're scared because they're falling. So
I still haven't been on it yet. I need to next time.
Yeah, I was
Then
just saying,
you gotta ride that.
unless you're deathly afraid of that kind of attraction. I mean,
well, I did the. As in Custodio, we had the opportunity to be a media host. So the day that Tower opened at DCA, I was there with the radio station from Arizona, and I went on it like, I don't know, probably 4 times in a row without getting out of my seat. And I finally said, "Okay, I'm done. I get it."
I probably was rubbing shoulders with you a lot that night.
Probably.
I remember that night.
Yeah,
quite well. But it's funny you say that, because one of the days when we were testing out the Guardians version, it was, okay, we got 6 different profiles here because of different audio versions. And I wasn't down there all that often. I was working with the franchise team, but still a part of that effort. And they're like, okay, let's go on it, and let's give them this one. And so the first time we go on it, there were probably like 60-75% filling the seats of team members. And I'm like, okay, that's great. And they're like, yeah, do you want to hear a different one? I'm like, yeah. And then, a couple of people are like, oh, good enough for me. And they'd step out. And then I think by the 6th one, there were maybe 3 of us total that were in there because everybody was like, no, too much.
Yeah.
And my buddy, Ryan, who is on the actual Marvel proper side, he told me sometime later, he goes, "Man, I was feeling so sick, but I thought if I said that I wasn't going to go on it anymore, you'd think I was a wimp." I'm like dude.
Oh yeah.
Good stuff.
So working with an Imagineer, you got you mentioned a few names, people that you worked with, and I can only imagine there's many more that you learned things from, and probably a lot of names that we've heard of too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if you're a Disney fan, and I would have to assume that your audiences that are listening to this are well versed in their Disney. Yeah, there are a lot of good people that I feel fortunate to have even had, if it was just one conversation or still have conversations with. It doesn't matter if it's that one or many. None of that's lost on me. I'm truly grateful to have had those chances and opportunities.
Do you want to mention some of the other things at other resorts that you've worked on in Disney resorts?
Sure. I feel like I need to bring up my own list now, because I tend to forget about stuff. I talk about the things that are like, oh yeah, people would want to talk about, and then it's like there's really obscure ones, like the original Animagique. Like, oh yeah, sure, I forgot about that one. Yeah. But it's like I worked on all the Buzz shows, which there was a lot of innovative stuff going on within the digital show production and paint, and with the fabrication with carpenters and all that kind of stuff. All of that was still under one roof when the first Buzz show was being built out in North Hollywood. So I'm quite happy about the fact that I can say I worked on Buzz Lightyear, because I like that.
You just can't stay away from the old Circle Vision building, can you?
No, no.
Got to work on rocket rods. You got to work on the buzz. Yeah.
Well, and even when Circle Vision proper closed, I took the intro to America the Beautiful and I put it into Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln. That's how that show starts now. So right,
yeah.
Circle Vision. It's always got to happen. Oh man, there are so many things under the blue sky umbrella that I wish it was acceptable to talk about, and I still honor the fact that I can't. But I just want you to know, it's like, when you're working within the blue sky realm, and a lot of the years, we're developing and pitching and creating and things like that. You're pitching stuff left and right, and if you're truly passionate about this work, which I am, you get attached to these things. And I would say, more than 90% of what you conceptualize with a team, or even if it's just a couple of you, it doesn't make it, to the parks. You might make it to that first pitch and it gets shut down. You might make it a few steps in and it gets shut down. I mean, there are a lot of things like that I wish I could discuss, because to this day I'm like, oh, but that project, oh, how I wish so bad that that could happen. And there are some that still could, quite honestly. But like one of those that took a long time was it was in 2006. It was a team of us. It was David Cobb, who works over at Disney Channel now. He's as an executive, Brian Crosby and Jim Clark and I, the four of us, have a passion, I should say, for Star Wars, and we wanted to figure out how to bring more of a Star Wars element and a Star Wars feel to Disneyland, above and beyond what we had already experienced. Did you guys go to the opening of Star Tours, the big 72-hour opening of Star Tours, by any chance?
Yeah, I've got my watches. They're buried away somewhere.
Perfect. Okay, well, the reason why that's important is because for me it was all about Star Wars at that point in time in Tomorrowland. Projections up on the Matterhorn and all that kind of stuff, right? And the idea that hey, Disney MGM. Sorry, Disney's Hollywood Studios.
Yeah,
it was my home park. But the fact that they got their Star Wars weekends and all that, I was like, why can't we have that kind of stuff? So the four of us that I mentioned put together an idea of how can we have more Star Wars, and we kind of wanted to wrap it up in the idea that it could be for the anniversary that was coming up for Star Wars the next year, and we had a lot of little elements in there that I again probably shouldn't discuss, but what I will discuss is the one that I drove really hard, because I built it out again as a complete ride-through multimedia piece, and then built an actual attraction poster for it, was Hyperspace Mountain. We got turned down on the entire effort. We were told by the chairman of Parks and Resorts that Star Wars was a dead brand and we shouldn't be talking about it. Funny.
yeah,
but remember, 2006.
yeah.
But the thing is, to this day, we're talking 2006. To this day, I still have my video build of Hyperspace Mountain, because I sat out there at my son's soccer game on a Saturday listening to every little nuanced Star Wars John Williams soundtrack piece on my headphones, choosing the exact right emotional elements that would be right for that attraction. Went back, and over the course of several days, a couple of weeks, whatever it took me, I built out what that experience was going to be. And then, because I was also heavily involved with getting the attraction posters produced for Disneyland, I built a retro Space Mountain poster, but with a Death Star and X-Wings and TIE Fighters. And so that gets shelved. And then, several years later, when, Star Wars is relevant to the company and things are starting to flourish, the team that was working on some elements there at the park came to me and said, "We hear you have this video." And I'm like, do I ever? Like I said,
Yeah.
I kept it, not kept it. to this day, I honestly, I still have it just at the ready on my phone because I'm like, I love Star Wars and I loved that. That came to fruition. Fortunately, out of all of that entire effort, Hyperspace Mountain did get built. The version that has been experienced by people is not the story beats, that I built out. Mine was very much a classic Attack on the Death Star. More of a very classical feel to it. But in the end, I was called in to be the voice of Blue 4, as a pilot on the actual Hyperspace Mountain. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm glad it happened. But I mean, little things like that where I'm giving you the thing I'm like happy and proud that got built, but I'm also being a little bit coy about the idea that underneath that, there was a team of 4 of us that put together this giant what if. And that giant what if, we were told, didn't have a relevant IP, which is just still so crazy to me. But those kind of things, you're passionate about it, you pitch, you want it to happen, and then womp womp, it doesn't go the way that you would hope it would go. Case in point, another one that got built but didn't get built in a Disney park is Harry Potter. So, I mean, I know that some of it's out there, and I won't go into like the nuanced details of all of that, but we were working on ride technology at WDI and fitting it with upcoming project IP, and it was, I had the date written in my phone because all of this was very important to me at the time, but it was Tony Baxter saying one day, he's like, you know what, we just can't seem to crack this because it's causing more internal fighting than progress. And this technology was fun, and we knew we wanted to do something as a ride system around it, but every single time something would start to gain some traction, other teams would jump on it and just kind of repackage the same kind of IP, and it was causing a lot of infighting. And Tony's words were, I need a silver bullet, something that shuts the other things down so that we can actually, advance, we can move forward. And it was my good friend and colleague, Jeff Leatherwood, and we spent the day just talking about it, and we kind of knew what we wanted to pitch, but it was like, do we have the courage? And then end of day, walked up and said, we got your silver bullet. And I still remember the look on Tony's face. He's like, yeah, kids. This was the conversation this morning. What's the silver bullet? And said, well, it has an emotional John Williams soundtrack and has a growing audience and has people standing in line for hours just to read it. And he goes, just say it already. And I go, it's Harry Potter. And he goes, I knew it. I knew that's what you were going to say. And he goes, we can't. It's not ours. And I said, you did Star Tours. You can't tell us it can't be done. You did Star Tours. And he goes, okay, touche. and he took it to management. And, there were a lot of things that happened internally in terms of, the desire to develop. A lot of that, goes down its own paths. As we all know, that didn't end up being, a Disney attraction. But the ride system that we were putting all that development into is the KUKA arm that ended up being on the main attraction there at Universal. I mean, they obviously tooled it and utilized it in their own fashion, but there was enough of the shared principles in terms of the work that we had done with KUKA Technologies that went into, what eventually became a stellar, amazing attraction. And honestly, I can't say enough about how much I love what Universal's done with Harry Potter. So,
for sure, I've only seen what in Hollywood. I've been to Orlando, but yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it.
You've been involved in more than just Disney. Do you want to tell us about some of your work elsewhere?
Yes. No. Well, I mean, theater has always remained important to me. I mean, that was my upbringing. That is kind of in the DNA of what I do and what I know. So even the years of Imagineering, I was going back up to, we were living in Santa Clarita, and my young family, I wanted them to be involved in theater, and turns out that one of the fabricators, carpenters that was at Disney with me years previous, he and his wife had started a fairly large youth theater. And so, I got my kids involved, which meant that I was involved, which means, I was going from working on Disney theme parks during the day to helping produce Beauty and the Beast on stage with several hundred kids in the evenings. This went on for several years, and it was. And I can't even begin to express to your listeners the size of this, because keep in mind that the person who started that youth theater was physically building attractions for Disney theme parks, and he also had a theater upbringing and background, as does his wife, and that was the quality of production that was coming to that stage with all of these kids. So it was bigger than like most regional theater productions you would see around the country. I'm like, I don't think these kids understand that they are basically living in this theme park level fabrication of a show. It was just, seriously, it was amazing. Even one of the other directors that was involved with us was with Gary Goddard, overseeing and producing, theme park attractions there. So you had his skill sets coming into it. And another one of the directors that was there had done entertainment work with Six Flags and Magic Mountain for a while, but they also own and oversee Melody Ranch, which is still an active, movie studio. And so, these kids, I don't think, could comprehend at such a young age that they were doing something as big and on a grand scale as what we were doing. So it's not something that, you guys can go out and experience right now. It does exist. It's called Escape Theater, but through the pandemic, they've had to, hold off on their full scale and their venues and all of that. But those are the kind of things that was like, what does an Imagineer do when they leave work? Well, everybody's got their different hobbies and their different outlets. For me, it still remained theater. To this day, I'm living up in Utah now, and I work for Hale Center Theater in Sandy, Utah, which is, I will say, it is one of the most state-of-the-art theaters in the world. There are some that will argue that it is the most state-of-the-art theater in the world. It's basically automation and all of the bells and whistles that you could ever imagine, built by Tate, who does a lot of the Cirque shows and things like that. So I am still professionally involved with theater, and I'm part of their video and creative team on that side, with helping them, develop, which is new to them right now, the idea of full projection mapping onto the stage and it's an astounding theater. Look it up if you're curious about it, or if you're in the Utah area, come and visit, because it is phenomenal. And what pulled me to Utah, even originally away from Imagineering, was I was hired to be the chief creative officer for an effort called Evermore Park, which really I can't tell you what their intent was, but I can tell you what my efforts were to the project, and that was to build it as a living experiential theater. That is not the way it was pitched to me, but it is the element of what I brought to that park. In 2017, we opened in 2018, and then I resigned and left there in 2019. But the most simplistic way of explaining it is, if you could live out a D&D adventure in real life, this would happen at Evermore Park. And you step through the gates, and there are all kinds of characters and creatures that are there to guide you through your night of active organic living adventure. And it was fascinating. I mean, if any of you have experienced like Ghost Town Alive or not, it's kind of on those lines of, there is no fourth wall. You are expected to be a part of this. The difference with an Evermore type of effort is the park was built on all sides with that purpose. It's not like a location within a location. This is the entire effort of that. And it's it might still exist. I honestly don't have any idea because I left it. But I do believe because of the efforts we're seeing with things like Galaxy's Edge and, like I said, Ghost Town Alive, I think there's a lot of this personal engagement that is going to continue to evolve. And I don't know where it's going to go because I still think it's in its infancy, especially as audiences are having to learn that it's okay to interact and not just watch. And the situations of the pandemic actually set that back quite a bit. I mean, things like personal engagement, talking to somebody or being willing to shake a hand, isn't comfortable anymore. I mean, the VR world was making all these leaps and bounds, and then all of a sudden, got kicked back pretty hard because of the pandemic. So I think, there were a few steps back, but I do think there is a lot of value in the idea that people are going to emerge from all of this wanting more human interaction than ever before because they were starved for it. And those that are embracing it, and again, we talked about Harry Potter, and I think Universal does it brilliantly with the way they built their areas. I think people will willingly embrace the idea that they can go for full escapism into theme parks and embrace that kind of thing.
Wow. Well, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on. Is there anything you'd like to plug or anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Oh, not in particular. I mean, I talked about the theater where I'm at now, and honestly, I just think the place is beautiful. I mean, if anybody is even close enough to be able to experience what's happening there, we're doing a production of Treasure Island right now by Ken Ludwig, and it is amazing. I mean, the main theater is a theater in the round, 911 seats. It's pretty big. It's like a big arena show, basically. We took the main automation of the center stage, which people are used to seeing like move all over the place during our different shows, and carved it out, basically, or we dropped the stage and built a pool and filled it with 39,000 gallons of water, and then put the deck of the ship and the stage on top of the water. And then on top of that, we have it rain at points in the show. We've got fire in the show. And so it's dramatic. It's Treasure Island, but it's a visual feast like you would just never believe. And I even built a video promo for it that's out there that just kind of gives a look and a feel for like this amazing thing. I mean, for those of you who may have the professional sports world and the Disney world that blend across, the Lopez brothers are in the NBA realm, but are big, huge Disney fans. And Robin Lopez is with Orlando Magic. He was in town this last week, and he came and saw Treasure Island, and was very, very like complimentary and awe over it because, as I told him, I said, this is just like a theme park. And it really feels that way. It feels like as if you're seeing a theme park level production, but with mainstream shows. I mean, the show we just closed before this was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and full over the top car flying in at the end, all everything you could ever imagine, and more. So, if I could choose a theater and a theme park to blend, it's the place I'm at right now.
I think they ought to, Disney Plus ought to get a hold of you, right? I have this idea. They should do, they should tap into your great movie ride experience because I miss that attraction. So what they can do is They could make a movie for Disney Plus called The Great Movie Ride Movie, right? Now,
With Steve Guttenberg.
and if it's a hit, they can do an attraction based on it. The Great Movie Ride Movie Ride.
And then if that does well, they could have a sequel.
They could do the holiday version. The Great Holiday Movie, Holiday Ride, Movie Ride, Holiday.
Movie Ride Holiday. I like where your head's at.
All right.
Well, great.
So.
Thanks a lot, Josh. Appreciate it.
No, thanks.
Okay. Well, that is the conclusion of episode 328. But don't go yet. There's always more.
But wait, there's more.
Well, that was great talking with Josh. I think we could have definitely talked a lot longer with him.
Yeah.
Didn't want to.
But we had to let him. We had to let him go before the cops busted in and cited us for kidnapping. So. You know.
No, that was really good. Wanted to thank Josh again for coming on, and now I wanted to talk. We always read our reviews that we get, and I wanted to mention that we have 2 new ones just in the past 2 weeks. So the first one I'm going to read, it's titled "Great Show." This is February 5th, 2022, from Disneyland. Dina. It says, "Great show, guys. You both have so much knowledge of the park that you share with us. It's amazing. You have the best guests, too. Always a great listen. Take care, Donna." Cool.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very nice.
Yeah. Have another one. This is They always cut, like, if the title's too long on the app, because I'm reading it on my phone, it always cuts off the title, so I don't know what the whole title is. What an incredible ... February 11th, 2022, from Go Gadget Mikey. It says, "I can't recommend this podcast enough. It's the #1 Disneyland podcast in the world, hosted by 2 former Disney Custodial cast members. In all seriousness, these 2 have incredible insight to the park, and their guests are so fun and diverse and smart. Truly, this is the best Disneyland podcast. I love it. They also have 2 books, which I admittedly have not read yet, that are they're widely acclaimed in the Disneyland community. I can't wait to receive my copies. Keep it up, fellas. I've been listening to you for years now, and I look forward to each new episode. Your taste in music is great, too." All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, for those reviews.
Yeah, and if you want to write us a review on, we mainly just read the ones on Apple Podcasts or iTunes or whatever it is. So if you don't listen through that source, I think you could still go on there and leave a review, and that would be great. And we will read it on our next show. Let's have a goal here. Let's have one new one, at least one every episode. So that would be cool. Other thing I want to mention was that we have a couple events real quickly, just to keep reminding people. We have the Disneyana show and sale that is on May 15th, and we have a link on our website that has that'll give you all the information about the show and how much and what time and where it is and all that. But it's in the city of Orange, and I think it starts at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it goes till about 5. And we will be there selling our books and signing them, and we'll have some buttons to hand out to you guys. So come on by if you're in the area. We also will be at, of course, at the D23 Expo, and that is in September, and I'm sure everyone knows when that is, because I can't remember at the moment. I think it's like September 9th, 10th, 11th, that weekend. And we'll be there again. So more details on that, but there's a link on our website for that one also. So those are the confirmed events so far, and hope to see everyone out there. All right. Well, thanks.
Come meet us and get our autographs, and come see us.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. All right. Well, that concludes this show, but thank you again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.